applications are eating software, from games to hotel bookings to e-commerce and everything in between. I'm going to bring out a great panel moderated by Papadimitriou. First, Mark Johnson. He is the CEO of Zite. Before Zite, he was with 3 companies that were acquired, one by one. That's pretty amazing. So he knows what he's doing. When he became CEO of Zite, instead of raising around, CNN came and made him an offer they couldn't refuse and bought them. So now Zite is part of CNN. We also have Eren Ben-Shushan, the CEO of Bizzabo, and you should all know this app by now. This company was voted most promising startup in Israel in 2012, and they're between New York and Tel Aviv, and they're kicking ass. And we have a local hero, Igor Zhadanov, CEO of Readdle. They make apps that are very popular in the App Store. You may know them, Scanner Pro, and a lot of other productivity apps. And they're right here in Odessa, Ukraine. They didn't take a drop of venture capital. They bootstrapped all the way. And it's a great success story of a local company. So please join me in welcoming them to the stage.
Hi, I'm Paul. So we're going to talk today about mobile. So mobile is this huge thing. So we can approach it from so many angles. I'll just read a few stats down so people can actually understand the scale of mobile, because I don't think people realize how big mobile, how massive it is, and how fast it's actually growing. And I'm very happy to have these 3 guys, because I'm pretty much sure that each of them, in their own methods, have understood that scale of mobile. And they've proven it with the services they've created. Last year, there was probably 1.7 billion mobiles sold in the world. This number this year is going to reach 2 billion. This 2 billion mobile phone, not only 2 billion smartphones, there are roughly a billion smartphones sold. Next year, there will be probably 2 billion smartphones sold. So if you just think about it, there's only 300 million PCs sold. There's already 2 billion smartphones being sold. The scale of this industry is so big that most companies, most corporates I work with, because I work with a lot of corporations, do not understand it. We're talking about the reason these networks are growing so fast. Let me give you an example. Facebook is now at 1.2, 1.3 billion accounts. Companies like WhatsApp, Line, KakaoTalk, WeChat are reaching between 300 and 400 million already, and this is in the scope of less than a year. These companies are growing extremely fast, and what they all share in common is that they are not only mobile first, but mobile only. So I'm going to let these 3 guys introduce themselves so you can understand a little bit what they're doing in their own words. And I'm going to be here to challenge them a little bit, although I think we pretty much agree on the scale of mobile, but to try to challenge them a bit about their business model. So maybe we'll start with you, Eren.
So first of all, good morning. Thank you.
I'm pretty sure you know who it is, because you probably have downloaded the application. That is the application that is used here for this conference, which you can talk about, actually.
Yeah, that's what we do. I'll tell you a little bit about ourselves, what we plan to do and are working on hard in the last 2+ years is fixing a lot of the broken things that, if you look at the online world and the mobile world and what happened in the last 2 decades in this world, and you look at the offline world, specifically at business events and conferences like these, there is a big gap between what happened on the online world and the offline world. And Bizzabo is a technology that comes to bridge between those 2 worlds using data and a platform like Bizzabo for mobile and leveraging the social interactions between everybody involved in a conference. So that's our vision, that's our passion, that's what we want to fix in the world. Very happy to be here. So thanks for having us.
So you guys are based both in Tel Aviv and New York, correct?
That's true.
Okay, because it's a very international panel.
Yeah, we're originally from Tel Aviv, Israel, and we recently, 6 months ago, opened an office in New York.
Igor?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. So we build productivity applications for iPhone and iPad, and effectively our big goal is to kind of make the day when you can go out of your office or your home without carrying a laptop. So this whole notion of post-PC era effectively means that you need to get real job done, real things done, real time saved using your portable device you have with you, whether it's iPhone or iPad. So till today, we have 6 major applications, around like 14 million people using our product so far. We've been doing this since 2007, and we've learned quite a lot on how people use a mobile device in their personal and business life.
Last but not least, Mark.
Hi.
You're already ahead of the curve with what you have on your head here, right?
I mean, I'm waiting for the wearables first companies, right? I'm Mark Johnson. I'm CEO of Zite. I'm at Philosophy Geek on Twitter. If I say something smart, feel free to tweet it. If it's dumb, please don't. I'm the CEO of Zite, which is a personalized magazine for the iPhone, iPad, Android phones and tablets. And it gets smart as you use it. So there's a really beautiful interface on the phones, but there's actually a lot of technology behind it. We read millions of articles. Well, the computers read million articles a day, and we have some smart algorithms that try to figure out the things that you like to read, the topics that you prefer, and we try to deliver a personalized magazine that's just for you. There's 40,000 topics. You know, most magazines will have maybe dozens of topics, so it's a really unique product, and that's kind of what differentiates us in the market from companies like Flipboard.
Oh yeah, you had to mention Flipboard. I was about to do that. I've been in mobile since probably 1998, 99. I had a startup back then. They were doing, mobile content delivery. Obviously, back then nobody was actually using. I mean, 99 was probably the tipping point for mobile. It started. I think there were like 4 mobile phones sold in the UK every 30 seconds or something. But nobody was actually accessing their mobile phones online. And what I remember, into that every year you would go to Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, you had someone going on stage and said, this is a year of mobile, this is a year of mobile. It became almost an inside joke because it was said, but it was never the case. Now, years down the line, especially with the release of the iPhone in 2008, we have, I think, 60 billion apps that were downloaded of the Apple App Store. So, of course, now the question was not going, is it the year of mobile? It's like, you guys, how to actually get through the noise. There's so many things going out. But first and foremost, what I really like about you three, and please tell me if I'm wrong, is that you were either mobile only or mobile first company. So you didn't even look, or maybe you thought at the beginning, but you didn't even look at going to desktop web. You immediately jumped to mobile. It kind of makes sense when I think about your business model, either because of the way you interact with articles with a touchscreen for Zite, on the simple fact that at conferences you need to actually have your mobile like I do here with me, but you probably don't have your laptop, or maybe you have it. So, but what was the thinking behind it? Why did you go directly mobile? Besides the numbers I've spoken, was there like, I mean, I know you, the reason I just told it, but I'll give you the word, but why did you go mobile first or mobile only?
I mean, honestly, for Zite, it was kind of dumb luck. So the company had been around for a long time. We had a web product that was sort of a personalized search engine for you that no one used. So the product had been around for 4 years and had less than 10,000 users over those 4 years. So it was kind of a failure in the marketplace. But we had this great technology. And we decided instead of having the search engine, we would try to do something that was more, which is kind of a pull technology, something more of a push technology. That is, instead of asking the search engine what you want, why don't we just give you a list of things that we think that you would be interested in? And we build that for the web. And we looked at it, and it was cool, but we did some user testing with it, and people were like, okay, yeah, I already get my news from other websites. It wasn't a real problem for people to get news on the web. Like, oh, I've got Google Reader, why do I need this? Luckily for us, the iPad came out just as we were sort of wringing our hands and figuring out what to do. So what we did is sort of, basically it was a Hail Mary pass for the company. It was a last-ditch effort. We were running out of money. We said, you know what? This iPad thing seems pretty hot. This seems like the perfect device for reading things. So we launched for the iPad in March 2011. Luckily, we happened to launch during the week that the iPad 2 was coming out, and we were #1 in the App Store after the first 24 hours. So it was pretty exciting.
Were you featured by Apple?
We were not featured by Apple.
Good.
Without any featuring from Apple, we just went to the top. We got really lucky. We had about 50 original pieces of news that day. We had a hit in print in Wall Street Journal and in the USA Today. So we had a lot of really good press, and that really drove the downloads early on. It's funny. Like I like to think that our mobile strategy was well thought out, and that we did this because we knew it was the right thing to do. But in essence, it was really just lucky, and it was a really lucky move on our part.
Why did you decide to actually? So you provide several apps, right? You're not a single. You're a product company,
iPhone and
right?
iPad, yes.
Yeah, an iPhone and iPad. So no Android, right? If I'm
yet.
right. Okay, not yet. But why did you choose to go that way?
Well, mobile itself is so different from desktop. So when the first iPhone came up and the smartphone era kind of started to get traction, you've seen that you cannot simply migrate your desktop traditional software to these small screens and get the same job done, get the same power, get the same flexibility. You have to have different interface. You have to have different context. You have to have recent data at your hands to be productive. So for us,
yeah, but actually, sorry to interrupt you, but for a long, long time, and hopefully it starts to be changing. A lot of people say, yeah, but I mean, come on, the iPad is just for consuming content, is not to be productive. You cannot create stuff, you only like read stuff.
Yes, initially it was absolutely the case. Now it shifts a bit, so you cannot create all kind of stuff on the iPad, but you can alter the content you have. You can do some edits, you can do some changes, and effectively it happened that most people need exactly that. So actually you don't need to create, you won't be doing like 150-page document, a brochure on the iPad, but if you have something lightweight to go through it, to update, to communicate with people, maybe annotate and comment, you are more than comfortable to use iPad today than carry your laptop and charger with you. So for us, going mobile was first a challenge on how do you bring the technology to the scale when it serves people that are not familiar with technology. So it's really a challenge in terms of interface. How do you build product? How do you solve these problems? What kind of problems actually are there? And iPad was the natural growth from that. And it was fun because like our first products were designed at a time when we did not have an iPad. So we have basically paper mock-up of the iPad, and we drew the interface with pencils, and we were trying to figure out how exactly people will going to be using that. So it was so new to everyone, so we had to learn fast, and basically that's the way the whole industry works. You have to move fast, you have to learn fast, you have to challenge every single statement you had yesterday, and kind of come up with a problem to a problem with a new angle. And that's the challenging, that's interesting, that's fun, that's rewarding if you do it right, and that was kind of why we did it.
All right. I kind of told you, of course, already. I mean, of course, in conferences you would have your phone and not your laptop. But did you even look at doing a desktop?
Of course. For us, it came mostly for two reasons. One is user behavior, and that's what you mentioned, Paul. And the other one was, besides the user behavior, was also the market analysis that we did and the opportunity that we had at that timing. I mean, what we're trying to do with Bizzabo for the conferences world is something that many companies already tried doing before, and a lot have already failed. Maybe some of you know some of the products or have been using apps in conferences. And for us, the big thing was to be the best tool early in the market and quite innovative. Back then when we started it, there wasn't a good tool, mobile tool in the market to do it. So that was also a key factor that made us take the decision to build the best mobile tool out there. But I think that maybe an interesting perspective at Bizzabo would be our challenges with mobile experience or a tablet experience would be a better experience for most attendees or most users. And for us, for instance, it wouldn't be enough to have just an iPhone app because you want to have as many people from the potential attendees at the conference join the party. So if you limit it only to 50% or 60% of the audience, that's a product that might be doomed and not be used. And you need to, for us, the challenge was to build a good product, cross-platform, but still not compromising on the mobile experience. And that's
the inception point. The mobile experience was the inception point.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And effectively, there was a problem which the product solved. One of the best ways to build a successful product is to find a real-life problem and solve it.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true, and that's what encourages, or that's the driving force for us, the major driving force for us to keep doing it and pushing hard. When we look, for instance, in this conference, there are, last time I checked the analytics, so there are 300 people in the community already before the event started this morning.
They sign up to the, okay.
That opt in into the community with more than one.
But they've done so on their mobile phones, right?
They've done from web and mobile.
Okay.
2 months ago, we released the web version of Bizzabo, so you get the experience, the desktop experience, like a month or 3 weeks before the event, and you log in there, and it's easier to search and browse and connect with people. And this morning, even before the event started, there were like 1,000 messages already, like private messages sent between attendees, and I think around 400 LinkedIn connections already made before the event started.
Okay.
And this is going to grow as we go in these two days now. It's going to grow quite fast, and I think that this is what Igor meant when, for us, you see that the product works. It serves a real need. This is the key.
I was thinking, mobile first doesn't mean mobile only. In fact, it almost never means mobile only.
I agree. Yep.
And I think that what a lot of mobile companies forget is what is your web strategy, and what is the relationship between your mobile product and the web. One thing that comes to mind for me when I think about the web as part of your strategy is how it figures into distribution. So one of the problems we're looking at Zite right now is, since we don't have a web presence, people tweet out. For Zite articles, I think that something like 3 or 4% of opened articles are tweeted out there. That's pretty amazing, right? That's a lot of tweets out there. We don't get any of that love back to Zite. There's a link shortener, and those links go straight to the publisher. Having a web presence could really introduce a large number of people to Zite. So we're looking at that right now as sort of this, there's this social aspect of Zite that's not really captured in your phone because the phone is your personal device. So I think there really are good reasons to go to the web, and one of the mistakes I see a lot of mobile companies making is sort of forgetting that the web is still there and the web is huge.
Yeah, but I mean, I agree, because it's like saying, okay, having a mobile strategy, you said you have a laptop strategy. At the end of the day, you have to have like an encompassing strategy. And if it makes sense to actually use contextually a mobile phone because it's something you have in your pocket at a certain point in time, yes. Or the reading experience on a tablet for Zite, I guess. But it's true. I know, sorry, I mentioned your competitor, but I think Flipboard now has, they create these magazines when you can actually read the content on your desktop PC. Or Mac, whatever. So they're actually expanding, because probably they came to the same conclusion as you.
Yep.
Like, there's a lot of content that goes out there, but then you cannot read it because you don't have you're on your PC or on your Mac, right?
Yeah, and think about how smart that is, right? Now, when we tweet something from the Zite account that says, hey, there's interesting things going on with Bitcoin right now, add Bitcoin to your Zite. Well, you have to actually then go to your Zite and search for Bitcoin and add it. Wouldn't it be cool if you could go to a page that has a bunch of interesting Bitcoin articles on it, and then you can just say, add to my Zite, and it adds to your Zite? I mean, I think that there's a lot of smart reasons to do that, and I think Flipboard has done it really effectively.
So basically what you're saying here is that you have to think in terms of product and not in terms of just like thinking about in terms of mobile. I mean, of course, mobile is the device, but the device has to be contextual. Since you're a product company, you release, how many products you have live now?
So far, we have 6 products.
6 products,
Yes.
but you had more overall, right,
Yes,
in the years,
yes.
but you have 6. These 6 products, are they mobile only, so iPad and
Yes.
and
Yes,
mobile?
these are mobile only.
Would it make any sense for you guys to actually go into desktop or not? Is it because of lack of distribution, or is it because you don't want to go and defocus your company?
It's a little bit of both. The thing is that, again, as you simply cannot migrate your desktop or software to the iPad, let's say, pretty much the same, you cannot simply move your iPad application to your desktop and get the same value, the same kind of power, and the same flexibility. So effectively, it means that you have to design separate products for desktop, for iPhone and iPad, because the patterns of usage are different, the screen size are different. All of that basically creates kind of different
We have a
approach.
drone looking at us. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
That's why we're distracted.
Yeah, so effectively, when you design a product, you have to create basically kind of a big product which consists of different components that complement each other depending on context. So let's say with our flagship product called PDF Expert, you will annotate your document on the iPad, but you will need to create this document on a desktop. So it effectively means that it's all different functionality, it's all different tasks and problem solved. And the only thing is connectivity that you have to develop between the platforms and to ensure that the same data, the same files, the same experience is more or less consistent across the devices. So no matter you use your browser to talk to some attendee on the conference, and then you pick up your phone and you see the same contact. You see the reply from that person, but you see it in all different interface, which is technically mostly like in different product. So it's not about like cloning the product between platforms. It's more understanding where the big problem is, and if you need to have web or desktop present for the product to provide full value, you definitely have to have.
But isn't there? That's a question for the three of you. Isn't there also a distribution problem? I mean, what are the big things that the platforms, whether it's iOS, Android, and of course Windows Phone, BlackBerry now is just dead.
Of course, Windows Phone. How many people here have Windows phones? That's the problem.
I'm agnostic. I'm agnostic.
And this is from a former Microsoft employee and Windows Phone user. I just,
No, I agree. I mean, it's a lot of resources for what? I mean, you've seen a lot of companies pull up, but let's go there later. But just talking about the App Store's system is that it allows you. It's a distribution channel which didn't exist proper to the web. I mean, Mac is trying to do it with a Mac App Store on your laptop, but this is. Go ahead, because you want to interrupt you. Just go ahead.
So that's the problem here. Like 4 years ago, the App Store was not only distribution, but also marketing channel. You could build a good product that solves real-life problem and that has some happy customers. These people will spread the word. And since you got like thousands of people coming to the App Store daily and looking for new good products, this will serve as a marketing and customer acquisition channel for you. And it was really good like 4 years ago on the Apple App Store.
Which means it's not good anymore?
No. Now, currently, the App Store is distribution channel. So effectively, it's a delivery platform to deliver your product to a specific platform, let's say Android or iPhone, in much more extent than like marketing the product. So you still have to think about marketing. You still have to think about customer acquisition. You still have to think about viral aspects of your product if your product is viral or social. You need to build that into the product. You need to measure that. You need to build your strategy around customer acquisition without relying on App Store as a train that will guide you to success.
I agree. But compared to my point was compared to the total absence of distribution channel on the web, it's still, you have at least a distribution channel when you use the App Store.
You simply need to be where your customers are. So if your customers are using Windows Phone and you're making a vertical product...
Does that exist, customers that use Windows Phone? I'm sorry.
But if you're making a product for people that use Windows phones, you're going to be present on Microsoft Store. If the majority of your customers is using Android phones, you're going to be there. So it's much more about the product overall, like the big picture you're looking into, rather than like specific App Store strategy or channel strategy.
I mean, I think that I agree with you, absolutely. The distribution strategy, and I think that this is one of the things that's been a challenge for Zite ever since our early days is what is your distribution strategy? I remember I was in a VC that did not invest in us, and he kept challenging me on distribution strategy, and eventually I pounded my fist on that table and I said, one satisfied customer at a time, and that was a dumb thing to say. They did not invest in us. However, I think what we've learned over the past 2 years is actually you can work with the app stores, for the app stores, and you can. You're crazy not to sort of optimize the experience in the App Store and make sure that Apple knows who you are, Google knows who you are, Samsung
Absolutely.
knows who you are. On the other hand, if you're relying on that as your sole channel, I think that's a huge mistake. But there's a whole nother sort of group of activities about how to work with the app stores, but that can't be your sole model.
Eren?
For us, I mean, we're a B2B business initially. That's what we are. Our go-to-market strategy is through the event organizers. We constantly are focused on building the best experience for attendees and for all of us who are going to these events. But the way we get to events is on a B2B channel through the event organizers. For us, the App Store is actually sometimes more of a barrier or some kind of obstacle that you need to go through. And there are...
Why is that?
Because when you do a contextual download and you want to know, for example, that someone is downloading the app and he is interested to go into a specific place in the app, which is the specific event that he is interested in, he needs to go through quite a long funnel and then be quite active finding the event that he initially came for. So there is some kind of break in the App Store that doesn't exist, for example, on the web, which for us was also a good reason why to build a web product where you sign up already with one click. We refer you to the right place.
Sorry to interrupt you, but do you think that if you had started with a web, so without a distribution platform, would you have encountered the same success?
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
One of the main,
and egg,
no,
right?
that's true, and we have no regrets. But the thing is, as Mark said at the beginning, that doing only one thing is not enough. You need to look at the big picture and the user behavior on a wide scale. And also, same goes for marketing. If you think that you're going to be ranked on the App Store very high, and by that it's going to be the end of the story, and you're going to become a successful company with millions of users, so it doesn't work like that. And that's something very important to understand, that you need to build a business and a product that people desire. And actually one of the effects, and that's maybe the last point, that I find as a very strong growth effect is the word of mouth effect. People hear about apps a lot of times from their social networks, their close friends.
The circle of friends, yeah.
And it has to be something that is giving the wow effect when you build an app, or bringing some kind of usability. For me, for example, I use ProScanner by Igor's company, and that's a product you talked before about why not going to web. I can scan today very easily documents from my Mac, but I didn't have an option to do it like this from mobile. And that's why I think what these guys are doing is very smart. They are finding the places where you don't have a good enough mobile product, and they build it phenomenally. And I use it, I don't know, every week at least, and I happily pay for it. And so you really need to build a product that has a business model, a business case, and a real life usability for real people. That's what you need.
Before I give you I just wanted to put in perspective here of some numbers so that people can understand. On the Android, Google Play, basically, there's 2 to 3 billion downloads per month, whereas it's around 1 billion for the iOS App Store. The average is for iOS, 4 to 5 apps are downloaded at a $2 spent, whereas on the Google Play, it's 3 to 4 apps per active device per month. This is how many people actually are active. And so iOS is slightly more engaged than Android. Of course, again, it depends on your product, and probably as well you slightly more revenue as a developer on iOS than Android. But I mean, the massive scale of the number of apps being downloaded and the number of apps people have on their phones mean that to reach, like you just mentioned, to actually to be signal, not big noise, you have to think about a product strategy. But you wanted to say something, just go ahead.
I just want to make a short comment on word of mouth. And you can learn a lot from the gaming industry that made the whole idea of virality not intuitive, but something that is accountable. So it's really strong thing if you could embed some virality into your product. And it's really challenging, and for some products you cannot do it by design. But if you could do it, the really strong thing would be to measure every single step across the funnel. How many people recommend your product to your friend? How many friends get this recommendation? How many friends respond to this recommendation but go into the App Store? How many people are downloading this application? How many people start to use that product? So funnels like these could be really solid in perfect world. In real life, you won't have the whole funnel, but it's definitely something that you might learn from the gaming industry, that you have to see it as a routine process when you design your product. It's not something that you can add later by adding like share to Facebook button. It's something that you have to bake in deeply into the product and ensure that the value that your customers, your users get, can be spread around happily by them to other people, to their friends, to their family, to their co-workers and others.
I think the gaming industry is a place always to look in mobile. So I think the gaming industry is really smart for another reason, the design reason, right? They actually design these things for mobile. I mean, think of Candy Crush on your computer, right? It's a much different game. But the other amazing thing about Candy Crush is they built in a distribution strategy into the game, right? This whole concept of losing lives and then getting lives from your friends, like,
or buying them,
or buying them. But I mean, right? So that's good. But like, but this idea that you can get them from friends and like you're constantly seeing what level your friends are at, and the idea that you can see, who is number one on that level among all of your friends, like all of these things are built in as part of the game. And the reason Candy Crush is so popular is not because it's a great game, it's because it's part of our culture now. It's part of what happens on my Facebook. It's part of what my friends do. And I think more apps should think about kind of how. Almost everything now is social, and how to build that in as an inherent part of your product is really tough, but if you solve it, I think that you've got what King has now, which is a billion-dollar company.
Actually, it's something that's been happening in Asia for a very, very long time. I mean, in Japan, you have social networks, I can even call them like that, like Gree and DNA, which basically are gaming networks, and people actually, they are made for not for gamers in hardcore type of gamers, but more like the Candy Crush type of gamers, although they are games that are more, but these type of mechanics, they understood very early this kind of behavior. I mean, the whole success of Line or WeChat, all the stickers and the fact that you can have the games, all the distribution strategy that's built around these networks that is not built into a Facebook, for instance, although they tried with partnership with Zynga. These are very, they were very early signs of how to understand consumer behavior and how addictive a game can be. Now, can you make Zite as addictive as a game? Can I ask for, this is where
it's something we're actively working on right now. I think when you look at personalized news, right now our context is really about your interests. But that's a very introverted way to look at news, right? That's kind of what's in my head, what's in my reading history. And if you look at the usage stats of Zite, we have a ridiculously used app. So it's an average of 22 minutes a day on the iPad. An average user reads almost 10 articles a day. I mean, there are often days where I don't read 10 articles on Zite, and I run the company.
Well, you run the company, that's why.
Exactly. But our usage stats are amazing, but a lot of that is internal. And we feel that news is actually a very social thing. It's what you talk to people about at a party. It's like what you share on your Twitter. It's like, what you talk about on a date. There's all these aspects of news. There's commenting. There's all sorts of aspects of news that are social. And I don't think anybody has truly captured that social news experience yet. I mean, sites like Reddit have started to go there, but I don't think anybody has done it on mobile yet effectively. So a lot of our kind of next generation efforts in Zite right now are trying to figure out what that means. And that is trying to add social as something really valuable for users. So it's not just an add-on, because there are certain apps. I was also thinking about this as we lump all of mobile in together right now. And it could have been the case that the answer was no, that there is no social aspect to news and there's nothing we can do there. And that means that distribution path really is kind of dead to us. I think in this case that's not true, but it's hard to lump all of mobile in together and say that there's sort of a single strategy that.
But that's also what's interesting, is that when you think about the desktop web, it's pretty well now settled. Mm-hmm. How users use the web is pretty much settled. It's been basically almost 10 years that's settled. It hasn't really changed. What is very interesting on mobile, whether it's tablets or smartphones, is exactly what you're saying. We're not exactly sure how still people are using it, which each one of you and any one of you here that's testing are actually still trying out. And it's been evolving. That's my next question. You mentioned design. One of the ways to actually now, I think you mentioned the wow factor. One of the ways to actually rise from the noise is actually to put a lot of emphasis on product, but also on design, to actually stand out of the crowd and have something that is so. And understanding as well, obviously, the user behavior. Is that something you've seen? How long have you been around, you guys? How long have you been around as
We've been working on it for 2.5 years.
2.5 years? You were
6.5 years.
6.5. What about Zite?
2.5.
So have you seen, let's put it that way, have you seen an evolution of how users engage with your apps? And also, as this push to a better design has forced you to also keep iterating to have to come up with a better product to still stand at the top? Yeah, you can
I
go,
say
Mark.
absolutely. We just released Zite for iOS 7. We released it right when iOS 7 released. And when my head iOS developer came into my office, she's a former Apple employee, and she really pushed hard to get an iOS 7 design out. It was going to push some other projects and delay them. I thought, oh man, she's crazy. This is a terrible idea. I'm so glad we did. And now Zite really looks like it's meant for an iOS 7 device, and I think that was a really smart move on our part. And we got some good love from Apple. We were in the design for iOS 7 section, which is what we wanted out of that. So that worked out. But also, I feel like users really have responded well to it. It looks like it belongs. If you look at the original Zite app, it was basically a web app encased
I remember.
in a nice iOS shell. And we did that only because we had a bunch of web developers. We didn't have a bunch of Objective-C developers. So it was good at the time. But then we spent the entire next year redesigning, and it gave us a good chance to kind of look at what the user patterns were and kind of rethink what the core of the product was. So we spent a lot more time, for example, in your top stories than we did in sections, which was more the original Zite. So I think that one of the challenges in mobile is you're sort of constantly evolving your design. That not only do you have to have a good design today, but as mobile moves forward, you have to continue with it, and that's really tough.
How do you guys actually? A question for you. How do you guys know whether your design is good and where it isn't sometimes, or how users actually react to your design and if it was successful or not? Because I mean, this is a huge challenge on mobile, especially analytics and understanding the user behavior, but truly understanding, not just there's one thing of looking at the numbers, and then there's something else of figuring out why the numbers came out to be these numbers. Exactly. And on mobile, this is like a huge issue for a whole panel, but just interested to hear about from your personal experience.
Honestly, it's kind of obsession. We spend, our main iOS developer and designer sit next to each other and obsess about every single detail. And I think we download a lot of apps. We look at what other people are doing. It's a lot of polishing. That is, the details really, really matter in mobile. I mean, when you've got a device, well, I guess I have a phablet now, so it's not quite as
That's a computer,
small.
no?
But it's really, it's about this, right? And it's about feeling good. I think one of the big advantages for Zite is we all use the product every day, and the little things really bug us, so we tend to fix them very quickly. Mm-hmm. We listen to our user feedback on the Apple Store. That's actually really valuable to go through that every day. We get a ton of feedback emails. Because our user base is so passionate and uses it so often, they send us long feedback emails, and we listen to all of that. But there's also, we can't do everything for everyone. So right. It really is just daily obsession, and I don't know if there's a magic formula for that. We don't do a lot of user testing, much like Apple. This is a lot of gut. So yeah, I wish I had a better answer or magic bullet there.
That's actually a perfect answer. I believe it's something that you constantly need to deal with. And from our perspective, something interesting maybe to share is because we are in the conferences business, we simply, we just go out there and go to tons of conferences. I think I've been to many hundreds of conferences in the last 2 years, and talking to users actually how. Sometimes, of course, we look at, the numbers and everything, but then when you get to talk with a real user and understand what were his problems, what he got, what he didn't get, and really feel your users constantly, that's something that really helps improving your mobile experience.
I want to hear Igor that one, because you've been a little bit longer than these two other guys.
Sometimes too much on design as well, like obsessed with details and refining. But at the end of the day, what you do need to think about is what your product makes your customers great at. So it's all about the customer. It's not about your product. It's why people use your product. What specifically some person can be great at by using your product. Whether it's like finding more connection on the conference, whether it's like reading more relevant news, whether it's like signing documents if you're a sales agent and you can close deal faster. So your product should be focused on making your customers great at something.
Yeah.
And design should be kind of subset, sub-goal of that approach. So there's a visual component for sure. People love new stuff. People love animations and sleek designs and so on. But it's really tricky to find the balance.
But by design, you mean like, animated GIFs and things that flashes, but
like-
more like...
It's more like how it works. It's not how it looks.
What I liked about your answer is you're looking at what a lot of competitors are doing. Are you seeing... Are there like some stuff, some interactions that you can see in many apps? It's okay, let's keep it that way because the users gets familiar with one way of using applications, and let's not go into something completely fancy because they will be completely lost.
Yeah, I mean, when we released Zite 2.0, our users revolted. I mean, literally revolted. Now, they were addicted to Zite, so we knew we had them hooked, and it was going to take a little while. But reading those reviews for the first few weeks was one of the most painful experiences I've ever had. It was over Christmas, and it was really sad. Now, our downloads were way up, so that was good, and we had a lot of new users coming in, and that was one of the big goals of the release. But changing user behavior is really hard. So we've been really careful, sort of since then to take stands in design and make sure that we have a strong point of view, reasons for doing things, and that we think we're doing it for smart reasons. On the other hand, we're trying not to make. I'd rather not do another dot release like an increment to the first number in your dot releases that's that severe, because you definitely lose a lot of people along the way. It's hard to change your users' behavior that significantly unless you release an entirely new product.
Yeah. Agreed?
I totally agree. And on that point, if I wasn't clear enough, we love to hear feedback, and I have the opportunity to get your feedback. I'm here with my co-founder, who's also leading the product. So please come to us. I want to hear mostly the bad parts or where you had difficulties with in terms of design and user experience. We'd really appreciate it.
I'm going to wrap it up soon, but I want one question directed to Igor, because I know that your apps, some of the apps are not free, are paid, right?
Yeah, mostly paid.
Why? I mean, because I know this is a concern a lot of developers, especially young startups, are like, what kind of strategy should we have? I know it's impossible to answer that question broadly, but I want more have to point of view. Have things changed? Because you mentioned earlier on that things have changed in the past 4 years. The behavior, like for the App Store not being a marketing tool anymore. What do you think about pricing strategy in an App Store? Maybe the iOS, because that's where you have the experience.
For us, we are more in what we would call like premium segment of the App Store. Like when $5 to $10 means premium these days. So it's mostly depends on product. If your product fits the paid business model like ours, it's really good, as people are more or less aware of the whole nature of relationship between you as a developer and them as a consumer. So they pay you for the product, they get the functionality they need, they're happy using it or not happy using it, depends on the person. But it's more or less clear. Let's say if you are into advertising supported business, you still kind of somehow imply by that, by distributing free product, you somehow imply that you are trading either people's times or attention or personal data for something in exchange. So for us, having paid application is partly the idea of clarity in the business model for the customers. And actually, people love buying stuff. People hate when they are sold to something, but people love buying things, and I'm a strong believer in that. So for us,
are they also more loyal when they buy?
Yes.
You think?
So, and the thing is that for the same product, when you lower the price, the average feedback and the average rating on the product gets down. So if people are committed to the product, they are more thoughtful in what they say about the product. Their feedback is much more valuable. And frankly, if the person did not pay you for your product or service, the feedback from them is something you should take with a grain of salt. So.
I'm jealous of you for having paid apps, because I think that mobile developers are in a really tough situation in terms of revenue generation. If you look at the web really screwed up advertising. So they basically took whatever was in paper and tried to shove it into the web, and it didn't work. That's why early search engines didn't make a lot of money. The reason that Google made so much money is their ads fit in with the product. That is, a lot of times in early Google, the ads, the paid links were better than the search results. So they actually enhanced your experience in the search engine. And I think this is the same challenge that faces us as mobile developers, is that the worst thing we could do is take ads that aren't working on the web and shove them into mobile devices. And that's what I see a lot of, especially in my world, the media world. That's what we do. Jeff Zucker, the president of CNN, is famous for saying that the dollars of print went to dimes on the web and are pennies in mobile. And I think that that's a huge problem for us because we're trying to take the same kind of advertising. Now look at something like King, where the business model is built into the application. That is, it's native advertising or a native business model. And I think that's our challenge is when we say mobile first, we should also be thinking mobile revenue first. That is, what's unique to the device that we can do.
Actually, one of the, I'm going to wrap it up, but that could be for another time, another discussion. Mm-hmm. One of the avenues that could be for developers, mobile developers, is I believe there will be more and more resellers, actually, especially resellers of APIs. So all these, the drop boxes and et cetera, they need actually to have the ecosystem alive around them. Mm-hmm. And one of the ways for them is to actually, every time a mobile developer uses all these APIs, they kind of become resellers and evangelists for these APIs because they want to build on top and on top. So that could be a revenue model, but that could be for another discussion. Just a follow-up on the paid apps. Well, how do you feel? Because there's been some discussions lately, especially with iOS 7 being released for Apple. How do you feel about somebody buying an app 5 years ago and still, and then getting the upgrades for free for a lifetime? Have you sometimes said, okay, guys, now we stop after 3 years, I'm going to make you pay again?
Actually, with iOS 7, most developers have faced this issue.
Yeah.
And actually, yesterday we have released our big product as a separate application, which basically means that people need to buy it once again for $10. And most feedback from what I've seen so far was that if your users are happy with the product, they're more than happy to pay like $5 or $10 on top of that in a year or two. It's not going to be the same if you do it daily, but if you do it with a reason and you provide some understanding for the people why you're doing that, it's okay to have paid application released as a separate application and separate releases so far.
I agree.
Okay. Well, yeah, go ahead.
No, we don't have a paid app business model, but from a user perspective and from everything I hear from people who run paid apps, this is the answer. I mean,
any closing words, guys? Yes, no?
Wow, we covered a lot. I didn't think
we covered a lot.
I didn't think we could go for an hour, but that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so much other stuff we could discuss on, but I know that we're already late on the schedule. One thing I'm going to encourage you, and I'm not pitching because it's not my company, as app developers, you should look at visionmobile.com. They have lots of good reports about how the app market is growing, which direction is trending, various markets. And they actually also gather a lot of developers together to actually create surveys. So it's actually pretty interesting. So I encourage you, if you're interested, if you're actually an app developer interested in being one, there's a lot of good resources on this website, visionmobile.com. So thank you very much, guys, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you.